had to get you guys to check out the new t-shirt, man. One of my homies gave it to me as a joke. But anyway, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trek Canon. So here we are today, and I wanted to do a reaction video on the Strange New Worlds series that's going to be coming out next year in 2022. Now, it stars Christopher Pike, Mr. Anson Mount, as the captain, going into the role that Captain Christopher Pike played in the Star Trek canon. Now, for those of you who don't know who Christopher Pike is and was only introduced to him through the Star Trek Discovery series, Captain Christopher Pike was the second captain of the USS Enterprise, 1701. No bloody A, no bloody B, and no bloody C. But he was the captain of the Enterprise on its second 5-year mission. The first 5-year mission, of course, was Captain Archer. And I wanted to kind of go into basically how he was portrayed in the original series, a little bit about his history, and see if we can link the events from the original series to what happened in Discovery, which takes place a few years after the events of the episodes that he was in the original series. Now, let's talk a little bit about Captain Christopher Chris Pike. Now, like I said, he was the second captain of the Enterprise. All right, going into a little bit about him. He's from Earth. You know, I would go into his age and all that stuff, but you guys can find that on Trekpedia or Wikipedia or wherever it is that they put all that Trek information in. So I'm going to go into some things that probably wasn't known about. Let's talk about it. So he was born in the Mojave Desert on Earth. He's always wanted to return to Earth and ride his horse and hang out on his 50 acres and a mule. But anyway, he's a strong leader. He is weary of women in the military and on the bridge. But I guess that was a sentiment that was prevalent back in the day, back in the 60s. Let me see. He is not the best negotiator of the captains. He's not very diplomatic, but he's a great tactician. He cares a lot about the members of his crew, but he's very stern. He's very stern with them. He's very direct with them. He tries to keep everything very professional on the bridge. He tries to keep everything professional with his people. During the time of The Cage, which is where we first see Captain Christopher Pike, well, it was the first episode written, the pilot. It was called The Cage. That was where we first are introduced to Captain Christopher Pike. And then they found that the episode was too cerebral, too above most people's heads, and they decided to create another pilot. And eventually, they ended up using the footage of The Cage to create the 2-part episode of Menagerie 1 and 2. And just for a few people who are familiar with the Menagerie Part 1 and 2, you know that Spock was taking Christopher Pike back to Talos 4, where he could live out the remainder of his life because he was confined to a wheelchair at this point. Now, the thing is that, as you know, Talos 4 was considered off limits by Starfleet and the Federation. So it was illegal. It was one of the only things still punishable by death to go there. Now, what people really don't know is that Spock kidnapped Pike to take him to Talos. Pike didn't want to go. Matter of fact, Pike was just saying no. But Spock took him anyway. So that's called kidnapping. Is it kidnapping when it's adult? Wouldn't it be adult napping? Anyway, so a little bit about him. He's like I say, he's a very good tactician. At this point of the series, he's feeling down, man. He's weathered. He wants to get out the Federation. He's very pragmatic. He just wants it to be done. He's tired of responsibility of being in charge of all these people, their lives, things like that. He just, like I said, wants to go back to Earth and chill out, man. Just ride his horse. Now, if for people who are familiar with Pike, you guys will notice a lot of similarities between him and the third captain of the Enterprise, Captain James T. Kirk. A lot of his idiosyncrasies, a lot of his behaviors was transferred from Pike to Kirk. Okay, so a lot of the things that Kirk does, horses, Kirk loves horses. All right. His style of leadership. Kirk was a very direct, outstanding tactician. He just had a little bit more negotiating skills than Pike did. So they wrote him a little bit more for that. They probably would have done the same thing with Pike if the series had progressed long enough with him still as captain, but it didn't. So we go up to Discovery. Now, Discovery's second season is when they reintroduced Pike. Now I'm gonna have to say Discovery's second season, one of the things that I really dug about it was the introduction of Pike and his character, because his character was one of, besides Saru, was one of the only Starfleet people that I could say was Starfleet, that abide by the Starfleet principles. Now, in Discovery's rendition of him, he was a lot more open and to his crew. He was a lot more interpersonal with his crew. He smiled a lot. He was real sympathetic to them. All right, he was a lot more, like I said, he was a lot more open with them. It was he had a little bit more leeway as far as not being so professional, and it was a good portrayal of him. But was it accurate? Was it an accurate portrayal of him? I'm gonna have to say they kept most of his core features intact, but the only thing was that he was a bit softer in Discovery. He was actually he was much more soft in Discovery. Now, in canon, Captain Christopher's time, it kind of goes like this. And for spoilers, well, it ain't gonna be spoilers, man. But y'all know how I wrote. But in canon, what had happened was the events of Talos 4, after he got out, it kind of reinvigorated his love for Starfleet. Okay, he kind of he fell back into his role as captain. Eventually, he ended up taking a position in Starfleet Academy, where he tried to save the lives of some of the cadets and got everybody out the room, but he was kind of sealed in and got exposed to a high dose of radiation.
To lockdown. 3 seconds. Main entrance field. Lockdown complete.
Which left him the way we see him in the menagerie. In the wheelchair, can't speak, and the only thing he could say is yes and no with a light. So in Discovery, one of the things that I ain't gonna say I liked, because it wasn't consistent with Kronos and why Kronos is named Kronos, but because they wrote it and they are the IP owners, I'm gonna have to say it's canon-ish. But they added to canon that Kronos, the reason why Kronos was named Kronos was because of time crystals. Nowhere in history of Star Trek was that the case. But we'll go with that. We will go with that. Now, Captain Pike, he was privy to some wars and everything like that. As a matter of fact, one of the wars prior to him feeling the way he was I forgot the name of the battle, but he was part of that particular war, and it was very jacked up, according to what he said about it in the cage. I'm glad that they're going to be going into a series on him, because he's a very interesting captain. Like I said, he was modeled after Starfleet's greatest captain, Kirk, was modeled after him. Now, when I say Starfleet's greatest captain, a lot of you know that I love some Benjamin Sisko. That's my dude. I would say something else, but I got viewers of other, so I can't, like, that's my, but that's my dude, right? And, but as far as the contributions to the Federation and to Starfleet, Kirk outweighs everybody. Kirk outweighs everybody. Like I said, in the original series, the original Starfleet symbol was only indigenous to Kirk's ship. Every other Starfleet vessel had a different insignia, okay? And because of the exploits of Captain James T. Kirk and his crew, Starfleet adapted his ship insignia, and it is now standard throughout all of Starfleet. That was the original canon. We fast forward to say like the prequels, stuff like that, where like especially when Enterprise came out, and you'll notice that everybody in Starfleet wore the same Starfleet insignia. Insignia, which again isn't really consistent with Star Trek canon, but they put it in there, man. So we just gonna have to roll with it. And I'm gonna have to tell you guys that was an inconsistency, because if you look at any of the original series, now I know that Gene Roddenberry said that the original series he didn't really consider a lot of the original series canon, and that's coming from Gene Roddenberry. But it was filmed, it was put out to the media, to the masses, and these are the things that the masses have used as a foundation for everything that is Trek. So understanding Mr. Gene Roddenberry, Great Bird of the Galaxy, says that, but nah. You may not consider it canon, but everybody who grew up on it considers it canon. That's like saying the first, that's like saying all the way up until the fourth Doctor that wasn't real. Let me not get into that, man, because this new Doctor. Anyway, Pike. So, his basic storyline in canon was short, and I basically just covered it all. He loves blondes. He really loves blondes. He loves short blondes. Let me see. He's regretful for his failures. Let me see what else. He's persistent. He tries to keep up a defense against the Telosians, which is using just anger and negative, or what they call primitive emotions. And believe it or not, they're very hard to do. You can't stay mad all the time. But he was trying it, Anyway, like I say, he's selfless and protective, sympathetic. He's adaptable. He laid the template for Kirk. Now, they mentioned in the episode time warp, and a lot of people are always talking about time warp and the warp factors that they use in Star Trek, especially in the early Star Trek. And just on my educated guess, I'm gonna try to shed a little light on it. In the Next Generation on, they use the word warp drop. All right. Now, in the early Trek, they use time warp. So I'm gonna try to use some of my little engineering and high-speed abilities to kind of try to link this all together. So the faster you go towards the speed of light, you know that there's a time dilation, okay? Now, this isn't very useful when it comes to trying to explore space and keep in contact with your home planet, the Terran world, okay? Which was Earth, for what we're talking about. So I'm thinking that time warp was an expression of the warp factor used to denote not only that they were going to warp, but how much of a factor of time displacement would be in effect as well. Okay, so if they went into a factor of 7, okay, it had a certain time displacement that went with that as well, or that they tried to compensate for with that as well. Now, I guess the science got a little bit better in determining, the things that the associations with traveling at that particular speed. They realized that time warp wouldn't be a factor when you're warping space itself, because you're actually not moving. So they changed it to just warp drop, right? So that's my little tidbit. Maybe try to explanation of the difference between time warp and regular warp. But anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm trying to put my reaction onto this right here, and hopefully it's going to be a good trailer. Hopefully it's going to be a great show. But thank you guys for watching. And as always, hit the subscribe button. Peace, recycle, save the whales. Y'all be cool.